this area.
Damn it.
Thought I saw them. See what it was.
Right there! Watch it!
Okay.
Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. So, in the news recently, two nurses, one a male nurse, not a doctor, a male nurse. The distinction is insultingly important because he tried to pass himself off as a doctor online when he was a nurse, who was an Afghan quote-unquote asylum seeker and also a radical Islamist. Those two nurses have gotten in some trouble on a chat roulette when they came across a Jewish man. So in this chat roulette chat, they seemingly threatened him and told him they wanted him dead before saying they would kill any Jewish people under their care at the hospital. After that, they implied several, quote, Jewish dogs had already died at their hospital, and further implied that perhaps they themselves had something to do with it. So, since then, the male nurse's home has been raided, with several things seized. It didn't say what was seized. My guess, which is purely speculation, all of this is alleged and purely speculation, is that electronic communication devices were seized, specifically for the communications between him and the other nurse implicated, and potentially the ward manager. Particularly if the ward manager is also a Muslim as well, with, you know, as they also have radical pro-Hamas leanings. If they have in fact killed Jewish patients, which is, you know, purely speculation on my part, everything here is alleged at the moment, despite the male nurse weirdly being admitted to the hospital for a checkup, which I assume is a mental health checkup. Look, it's an extremely large amount of paperwork for the police to sift through. To my knowledge, they would need to review multiple individual case files of patients and to look into like multiple potential deaths over the time periods between their hiring and now. You know, particularly with names ending with, I don't know, Stein, Berg, Cohen, Friedman, Horowitz, Epstein, Roth, Goldberg, and like, I think like all of that would be written case files, not electronic records where you can go, you know, Control F to find certain things. So you're fucking reading through handwritten case files. Those poor bastards are probably sifting through hundreds of handwritten pages of notes right now. Jeez. Like, there'd probably be other ways to narrow it down too. Like, you would probably be able to just look up deaths and to contact the families who have had relatives who have like died there, or either just put out word publicly through media or online on your police website or tip line website. Have the families who have had loved ones died there that are Jewish contact them. The deaths that were suspicious, of course. Once they'd have that, they'd probably need the pay slips from the hospital, from their zero or whatever they used to pay people. They'd need the pay slips from them to identify the hours where the two nurses or any other radical nurses within the hospital were working, if they were like working the nights or the nights before or during the deaths or during any changes in the victim/patient's conditions, and they would be able to use that to highlight specific cases, review the cases if there's any suspicious activity, interview the ward manager, review drug charts, get relevant autopsies to identify any damage, like that sort of thing. There was like a while ago another like sort of serial killer nurse, not saying that this one is a serial killer or anything like that. All of this is speculation and alleged still at this stage. But there was another nurse that was like killing people. The way this one was doing it, I believe, was inserting wire into vein and artery catheters to make them like bleed out and to make it like look like a complication with the catheter itself. Was either doing that or giving like lethal amounts of painkillers as end-of-life care to a bunch of really sick people, that sort of thing. Giving drugs to people that they were allergic to, that sort of thing. And it also should be noted that that nurse killed a fucking ton of people and got away with it for like, I think it was like something like fucking 10, 15 years. Got away with it for the longest time doing it as well. Mainly by like going to different wards and to patients not under his care but under other people's care. The funny thing about that was that all the nurses and doctors there sensed something wrong about them. They sensed like on some level that he was killing patients. So like it may even be like relevant to interview some of the other nurses to find out if they've noticed anything weird about them or any like weird deaths or weird timelines and that sort of thing. That would even like help you narrow it down. But those are like the places to look, in my opinion. And look, all of this is, alleged. It may just be, shit talking online on a chat room, which we have all done. And look, they may not have killed anyone at all. But, but at the same time, Muslims are responsible for like 80% of global terrorism deaths. That just gets completely overlooked. And these seem to be like radical pro-Hamas Islamists. Like, they directly support a direct terrorist attack on civilians. A terrorist attack which, massacred a bunch of civilians and then took a bunch more civilians hostage in order to trade for, like, convicted terrorists in Israeli jails. People that, like, may have organised, suicide bombings on civilians themselves. So look, they're getting fucking zero benefit of the doubt from me with any of this, right? I want like a full proper investigation and everything like that. But look, the whole situation sounds pretty fucked to me as well, because there was like a whistleblower there that was like targeted in like an office politics way in an attempt to be like deregistered as a nurse, and this was like allegedly in reprisal for being against and reporting other nurses chanting from the river to the sea. For those of you who don't know, from the river to the sea is a genocidal chant. It's the abolishment of the state of Israel from the Jordan River on the right there to the Mediterranean Sea on the left. The idea is to completely abolish that state, put it under Islamic rule, and then just have the Jewish people there cleansed, ethnically cleansed, essentially. And like, if that is the case, that sounds to me like the worst type of fucking office politics, right? It sounds to me like a systematic radical Islam problem in office politics in that Bankstown hospital. And all of this is, of course, at the same time alleged and speculation. But yeah, that sounds pretty fucked. The issue is that if the authorities there are also like radically Islamist, then you can't rule out that, you know, these aren't the only 2 nurses that targeted Jewish individuals there. And if it went to that level in terms of office politics, you can't rule that out. And like, if that's the case, then the individuals there that targeted Jewish people allegedly would have done so with the blessings of like ward managers and office people and HR and all that sort of shit. Like, that's if indeed they were involved and weren't caught or even suspected until now, after this whole, you know, chat room fuck up, whatever this was, this anonymous random chat room roulette where they, you know, had to just, you know, spout fucking anti-Semitism to like a Jewish person, which is in itself is pretty fucked. But yeah, and like, that's not the only problem. Like, if Islamists in large numbers have infiltrated police institutions as well as like health institutions, like they may have done here, or if the police assigned to investigate this are like Islamist, then they may turn away and ignore it. Like, not only that, if they do find like a massive problem and scandal, leftist politicians may just ignore it anyway, because it's like too heavy of a blow to fall on New South Wales Health and, by logical extension, on the government and government policy, particularly like Labor, and to like a lesser degree but still responsible, Liberal Party, both of whom have been, you know, fucking absolutely terrible on race Marxist policies, like quotas and that sort of thing. Ironically, also, fucking domestic violence, they're terrible on that as well. Importing, you know, Islam when you're running campaigns against domestic violence seems a bit silly to me, counterproductive, but, you know, whatever. But, like, also, more importantly, it would reflect negatively on all the immigration policy and the asylum seeker policy. Particularly from fucking Muslim places that have, like, you know, it's unrelated, but they have things like, you know, child marriage and all that sort of shit, especially in like Afghanistan and Pakistan and all that sort of thing. Like, if you're accepting asylum seekers, like, by all means accept, you know, Christians from like Syria and Africa, you know, actual people that are, you know, actually getting massacred in actual ethnic cleansing by fucking Muslims. But why the fuck would you accept Muslims at that point? Like, the argument is like an economic argument, but like, even that falls flat. It's like a false claim in and of itself. Like, no offense to Muslims, but they are never net tax contributors, which is the leftist economic argument for mass immigration. Other immigrants are, but Muslims aren't. And And with Muslims, there's also other significant cultural problems. Just like, as mentioned above, domestic violence, you've got terrorism, terrorist attacks, honor killings, mass stabbings, vehicle attacks, grooming gangs. And the grooming gangs is linked to it culturally through child marriage and forced marriage and that sort of shit. So it's like, it's just all pretty fucking bad. Like, okay, fair enough, not all Muslims. Probably like more than 50% of Muslims are okay. They're probably not net tax contributors, like statistically speaking, but let's say, you know, peaceful citizens not doing anything wrong. But even the good ones are like, as mentioned above, not net tax contributors, which is the reason why you're advocating mass immigration, economically speaking. And the bad ones have an absolutely fucking uncounted and atrocious negative impact that like far outweighs any small benefit the good ones bring in. And it's the good ones are, no offense to them, but net negative benefit. Like one bad Muslim that slips through and does like a vehicle attack and like kills like 20 people, that's like potentially, what is it, like 500 people or more? Like assuming family, direct families like what, times 4, and then extended families like another times 4. Just crazy amounts of people like negatively affected. Like not only them, you've got all your family, you've got the first responders, you've got the people there, you've got insurance providers, you've got long-term health implications from the people there. They get crippled by the car attack, they get broken like legs and hips and like never the same again. You get PTSD of the people there, the kids there that see it, the long-term effects of the PTSD on the families of the people who live with the PTSD. Like, it's just absolutely fucking horrible and uncounted cost, right, to like a terrorist attack. And look, there's no good way to actually screen them. Like the ones that have done terror attacks have either passed screens or were like let in anyway by just absurdly weak leftist courts and judges to like await trial or something, or like even, let's say, failed the means to stay and were awaiting appeal in the country, free to roam. Like, it just seems like an absurd risk that taxpayer citizens like never consented to. Like, if you posed it to the people and the people voted, and they voted to accept a risk of potentially, you know, negatively affecting upwards of 500 people, knock-on effect, but it's probably more, by accepting, you know, one terrorist Muslim. Like, that trade-off is never, you know, explicitly presented to people. It's just fucking crazy to me. Like, if that trade-off was presented to people, they would probably say no, but the way it's framed, they're never given the information that way. So they will just continually vote for Labour, and Labour will continually ideologically push this retarded leftist policy just based on a false claim about economics. Yeah, just insane. And look, if this is indeed a scandal and they do find that, like, let's say 5 or so Jewish people were killed in this hospital with, like, negligent care or whatever it is, then that shit's really adding up. You've got, like, the 2 recent stabbings in Europe, the ones in UK, the Axel Rudakabana one in the UK where he stabbed 3 girls to death, 3 young girls to death, and then stabbed like another 11 people or whatever it was. You've got the vehicle attacks in Europe and America. It's just all adding up, and that's just so many lives affected. Like, each one of these is like, what, 500 lives? Like, if you walked into that studio as a first responder and you see 3 little girls stabbed to death with a knife by this fucking animal, and this animal isn't even getting hanged, he's just getting put in prison for the rest of his life. Like, how are you supposed to respect law and order in your country after that? That's just, like, gross injustice. Like, back in the day, they would just hang him. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And just given all this obvious incorrect policy, like, how are you supposed to respect law and order in your country at that point? Like, it's just all absurdly weak. But not when it comes to you spouting hate speech and Islamophobia and all that sort of shit. It's just ridiculous. Like, people aren't getting heard, and eventually it is going to become violence. It really is. It's not good. And, like, people called Trump racist, and he solved it in terms of policy with one thing. He said, "Oh, we'll just put a Muslim ban on the terrorist countries." Oh my God, he solved what? Decades of, terrorist attacks. He solved the grooming gang scandal. With one flick of his, policy pen. He solved it. Like, you can't make this shit up, but the leftists push it through. No, it's racist, you can't do it. Fucking retarded. Like, the very accusation that it's racist that are yelled when, someone mentions that. Islam isn't even a fucking race, it's a religion. So it's not racism. Like, at best it's bigotry. And like this cry of Islamophobia. Like, Christians are far more persecuted than Muslims. And in fact are persecuted by Muslims, particularly in Africa and Syria and that sort of thing. And now, due to retarded leftist policy based on a false economic claim, they're going to get persecuted by Muslims in their own countries now. Like, the level of ignorance of a leftist accusing someone of racism when they criticize Islam is fucking wacky. Like, apart from the massacres, Islam is like soft, ethnically cleansed like almost all of the Christian populations in their countries. Not to mention, like, the hard ethnic cleansings, like, the Armenian genocide, the Greek genocide, the Assyrian genocide. To call someone racist for criticizing a religion that ethnically cleanses a bunch of racial religious minorities and cultures in their own states, like, shut the fuck up, you moron. Like, I didn't even mention them all. You've got the Druze, you've got the Kurds, you've got, like, a bunch of different types of religions. You've got pogroms on Jews. In Bangladesh, they directly attack civilians. In Africa, they massacre Christians. Like, anyone calling you racist for criticizing that, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, you really fucking don't. And you have got that completely and exactly wrong. But, yeah, anyway, let's see where this goes. Hey, look, it may all be nothing. And then again, it may be a state institution in New South Wales Health in Australia is implicated in Islamic ethnic cleansing of Jewish civilians in Australia, which would be fucking atrocious for Australia. We'll see where it goes. Is Australia going the way of the UK? We'll see. And, like, just touching on UK, that fucking the most recent out of the UK was, right? In response to the Salwan killing, where a Muslim went to a man's home who burned a Quran and just shot him to death, in solidarity to that, a fellow, I'm not sure if he was an atheist or whatever, he was an anti-Islamic activist, let's say, he burnt a Quran out in front of the Turkish embassy in the UK. In response to that, a Muslim passerby pulled out a knife. Don't ask me how he had a knife. With the UK's strict knife laws, you got a license for that knife, mate, in it. stabbed him or tried to stab him. I think he tried to stab him because he survived. They both got arrested, and the Muslim that attempted to murder the man who burnt a Quran out in front of the Turkish embassy got released, but the dude who burnt the Quran got held in custody and was denied bail. Fucking make sense of that dumb shit? How do you respect UK law at all? Like, how are policemen not getting attacked on the street for that is just beyond me. Like, I would expect police to be getting attacked on the street for that. To be literally getting called into ambushes from civilians for that. That is insane. That's just wacky. All I can say is, thank God for JD Vance fucking calling out all of Europe for its dumb shit stance on Islam, and thank God for Trump putting like pressure on the UK to reform their fucking freedom of speech. All I can say is thank God for them two people doing what they're doing. They really are doing God's work. But yeah, UK just fucked. And there's like what? Thousands of people in prison in the UK for speech. Particularly like mainly hate speech, which is essentially, you know, blasphemy law against Islam, which is just fucking insane. It's insane that Islam has gotten as far as it has. It is literally the worst religion. To think that it could claim this sort of moral high ground while it has ethnically cleansed its countries of other people in the manner it has, just speaks to the fucking historical ignorance of the West. Just none of this shit is taught in the West. Like, anyone who knows anything about the history of Islam, like, it should just be obvious, right? Like, they're the only military force in history, I should mention specifically in Palestine, but, you know, in Africa they have child soldiers and shit as well, so, you know, whatever. But they're the only force in history that I know of that has used child suicide bombers to target civilians in a conflict. And that, in and of itself, is just pure evil. There is no justification for that. The use of a child suicide bomber, an indoctrinated child with a bomb on him, to directly attack innocent people in the spreading of an ideology, or well, not even in the spreading of an ideology, in the spreading of fear in a civilian population, so you will submit to a violent ideology. Pure fucking evil. Pure fucking evil. Needs to be eradicated. Yeah. It just blows me out that you still have people in Australia. And look, some of them don't know about that. Some of them fucking do. The ones that do and the ones that excuse it and try to whataboutism about it, with like Israel. Yeah, just absolutely wacky. But, you know, that's the world we live in. You can only keep speaking the truth. Eventually they'll come around.